In the early 20th century, an American explorer by the name of Edward Thompson dredged a sacred cenote, which is a natural well found near the northern tip of the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. In it, he found a 14-foot layer of blue precipitate, a 14-foot layer of blue precipitate, a 14-foot layer of blue precipitate, bowls, artifacts, and 127 skeletons. How cool is that? But why are all these artifacts and bodies in a well? And how do you create 14 feet of blue sediment that is blue for centuries now? This vibrant blue color is known as Mayan blue. It's found on pottery, codices, palace murals, and other artifacts made by Mayan peoples centuries ago. This color held an extremely strong significance for these agricultural peoples, as it was the color of chalk, the rain god, and of human sacrifice. When the climate was dry and the skies were cloudless, much like the color Mayan blue, human sacrifices may have been painted in this color and sacrificed in hopes of rain. However, more often than human sacrifices were artifacts and pottery painted in the same color and sacrificed for the same purposes. So that would explain the contents of the well. But perhaps one of the most peculiar things is that this pigment is unusually durable, remaining vibrant after other colors have long faded away in one of the world's most harshest climates. For a long time, its chemical stability was quite a mystery. How is it able to remain virtually impervious to age, acid, weather, and even some of the world's modern solvents? Needless to say, if you have 14 feet of this pigment sitting at the bottom of your sacred well, it must have been pretty darn important.
There's very little pigment remaining on these reliefs, and we're trying to track down a particular pigment, which is called Egyptian blue. It's a very important pigment that was used throughout antiquity, and it has very special optical properties that we're exploiting in this technique, which is called visible induced infrared luminescence.
These reliefs would have stood in the palace of the king. The larger goal of the project is to reconstruct the color of these palatial spaces. Now, these reliefs would have stood underneath wall paintings. The ceilings would have been painted, the columns would have been painted, the floor would have been painted. Try to imagine what these palatial spaces look like in color, because color is an important cultural signifier.
These Assyrian reliefs were discovered around 1840 by the British, and in fact at the time of the excavations it was not unusual to have an artist as part of the team and record and document through drawings and watercolors what was found and an interpretation of the palace at that time. And in fact, we have at Yale collections of these drawings and watercolors, which makes it even a richer resource.
A scientist at the British Museum, Giovanni Verri, he pioneered visible induced infrared luminescence as a tool to spatially map the remaining pigment grains of Egyptian blue on these reliefs. So we can zoom in on a detail, so we can focus all the light we have on the area, and in this case more is more. The more light you have, the more signal you get, and the more easily the Egyptian blue is detected. The effect is very, very strong, so even single grains of Egyptian blue pigment we can detect with this technique. The Egyptian blue will show up as bright white, while everything else will be more or less dark in the image.
Blue was a rare color in ancient times in general, compared to, let's say, red or yellow pigments. So the Assyrians actually were very interested in trying to manipulate pigments and create blue. And it became a prestige color for the Assyrians, and especially with the prestige symbols in the Assyrian landscape, which were the palaces.
I find it quite amazing that there are any traces of pigments on these ancient reliefs, considering that they're nearly 3,000 years old. I find it quite amazing that there are any traces of pigments on these ancient reliefs, considering that they're nearly 3,000 years old. I find it quite amazing that there are any traces of pigments on these ancient reliefs, considering that they're nearly 3,000 years old. And at the time of excavation, it was not uncommon for archaeologists to actually scrape off polychromy in order to better read the inscriptions and the carving. So the fact that we have some pigment remaining that you can see with the naked eye is terrific, but the fact that we now have a new technique for looking at traces of Egyptian blue provides us with even more information, and we actually can kind of rediscover what the polychromy would have looked like in antiquity.
Our findings have confirmed some of the things that I've read about. The beard of the figure standing behind me has blue, and a blue beard is sort of a metaphor in the ancient world because the blue had a luminescent quality to it, and since beards were associated with masculinity and virility, it makes perfect sense that the king would have a bluish black beard.
Look into the United States, we have the Bush family in power. Even if it's not called Bush, there's Bush inside. And they're all members of Skull and Bones. Sounds pretty black magic. If you look how these people are interconnected, the next topic is going to be black goo. And there's one big black goo deposit in Paraguay, and there's one village next to this black goo deposit, and the Bush family has her big villa escape territories. When they are chucked out of the United States, they're going to be down there living in this little village in Paraguay. And a friend of mine went down there to get samples of this black goo from Paraguay, and he realized that Angela Merkel had her villa next door. Yeah. And this black goo has to do something with the communication with demons. This is in the black magic tradition. These black goo schists were used to communicate with the demons. So this all interconnects on political, scientific, and the level of mythology. We can access black goo also from the little pictures from the microscope. This is German rain. And if you want to know what this liquid does, you can have a look at it in the lab. When you have bigger amounts of it, it looks like this. It's a liquid crystal. This liquid is self-organizing physically. And this, at the moment, is sleeping. It's not aware of being observed, it's quiet. Sometimes when it doesn't like to be observed, it might jump out of the pot straight into your face. If you have two of those in one room, get them 5 meters close to each other, they stare at each other, then they decide that they want to be united. And then they start to pull. It's like magnetism, but it's intelligent. And when they realize that you hold them within the vessel and they cannot escape, they get angry and start to shake the vessel and try to break through the wall. Because they know once they are through, they can flow over the ground and unite to a bigger unit. This is something you can just observe in the lab. And especially this liquid was extracted from those black stones. This is World War II leftovers. We found them in an underground facility in Bavaria, 1/2 ton of it. So we can imagine that the SS processed quite a bit of this. And I guess that the guys found also the technology to extract the oil from it. Must have been there in written form because they did it in the lab successfully. If you look at those stones, you have a brief history of things reported out of former times. You have, if you look at H.P. Lovecraft, the descriptions of the black magic communities in Eastern Europe, they had kind of sculptures out of this black oil schist. And once a year they went there slaughtering little babies to get the demons out of the stone, sacrificing little children to communicate and get the service from the demons. This is one thing mentioned. If you go back in history, you find them in the Kaaba in Mecca, the same form of phallus-shaped structure that is described in Vedic script as Shiva's lingam, that is described in this Lovecraft script. A fragment of it is part of a central part of the Kaaba in Mecca, and every Muslim in the world is asked to go there once in his life and to kiss this stone. And it is not easy to understand the overall concept, because when you start to deal with black goo, the first thing you need to discover before anything makes sense is that there are two different qualities. We have liquid black goo. It is basically, it has been found on a southern Falkland Island, Tula Island, and this is what the war with Argentina was about, accessing this black goo. We have this type of earth black goo in the Gulf of Mexico. This was what the Deepwater Horizon catastrophe was all about. Somebody was shooting a torpedo at the facility, destroying the attempt to get the black goo out of Mother Earth. And we had, I think, eight military submarines getting close to World War III, trying to capture some of that oil after Deepwater Horizon was destroyed. And no single civilian was allowed to go to the beaches to remove the oil. It was just military personnel with special equipment and fully shielded against the influence of this substance. So this is one quality that comes from Mother Earth. And then you have a second quality that is found in connection with meteorite sites. If you look at the thing in Paraguay, you can exactly see by the form the stones are broken in the environment that was an impact of a meteorite. If you look into the Arabic mythology, They say the thing in the Kaaba in Mecca is a fragment of a meteorite. And this is now not against Muslims. If you look into the Peter's Dome in Rome, you have a big piece of this stone under the Peter's Dome. And if you analyze all the churches built in Middle Ages in Europe, every altar has a black altar stone. And what you feel when you enter a church is not the love of God. It is more like a cold fear. Yeah? This is the resonance transmitted by the structure of the church, fed by this black stone in the central point. Now, what we need to realize is that there are two qualities. One quality is coming from inner earth, and one quality is coming from outer space. And they feel completely different. The Falkland black goo is called xanthan and oil, because it has full empathy. If you're getting close to this oil, you're coming in a state of mind that is full of love and empathy. If you come into the vicinity of the meteorite black goo, your heart chakra dwindles to nothing, and you become an empathy-free asshole. After my first contact with the stones, I was this close from killing the hotel director, because she complained that I took a shower, although I had to sleep outside. They didn't have any rooms left, so I slept in the car, was dead frozen in the morning, and took a shower in a room of a friend who had the last room that was available. And she just complained that I took a shower without asking for permission. I was really close to killing her. This is what these stones do with people as long as they're unconscious. Now we need to understand, the second thing we need to understand is what is the function of the black goo. And to understand the function, you look at the chemistry. It is a mineral oil dotted with high amounts of alchemistic gold and iridium. It is a mineral oil dotted with high amounts of alchemistic gold and iridium. It is a mineral oil dotted with high amounts of alchemistic gold and iridium, which is precious metals in the M state. Precious metals in the M state, which is, it's not really explored. Some people say it's a type of antimatter that is far enough out of our reality to avoid a collision between matter and antimatter. Some people connect it with superconductive qualities. Some people connect it with superconductive qualities. Superconductive qualities. What we know is that gold and iridium in this state of matter is a very important component of biology. If you look at in DNA, you're kind of forming hollow spaces in the spiral, and you can fit these monoatomic precious metals exactly into the open space. And they kind of act as a biophoton attractor. The DNA itself is capturing the field energy, storing it and resending it out. But the gold and the iridium are attracting the photon onto the spot. So this is basically why we get old. The body is capable of producing M-state matter until we are 18 years old, and then we are losing it. And when the matter is gone, the M-state matter is gone out of our system, we disconnect from the morphic field, and we lose our shape and get old. This is why the Egyptian priests fed themselves with these M-state matter, because this function was out of work. So basically there is a kind of fractal similarity between the function on light level of a human being and the function of the black goo within the earth or wherever it is, in a way that we are divided, we live in duality, we are single individuals that are only a little bit connected, interconnected with talk and telepathy sometimes, and with a beautiful smile one might receive, and we are kind of coming and going in generations. But the way we are processing light is actually the same as the black goo is processing light, creating this funny type of quantum magnetism. The way we are processing light is actually the same as the black goo is processing light. The way we are processing light is actually the same as the black goo is processing light. The way we are processing light is actually the same as the black goo is processing light, creating this funny type of quantum magnetism. This is a light effect. So I came to the, let's call it a theory because I cannot prove it, that basically life is first created within a planet when water and CO2 is forming. Water and CO2 is forming this type of black goo oil in transmutation processes. We had this process in the lab. We can replicate it. This is why I'm pretty sure with this part, that this is initially formed out of water and carbon dioxide by vortical motions, because we can do it in the lab. And then this type of black goo at a certain point is exiting the Earth, coming into the oceans. This is what you call a black smoker on the ground of the ocean. And this is where the geologists say there was the place where the first life was formed. Because of the repetitive light patterns start to modify with this oil. And the first simple life forms can be built that develop generations and individuals. Like a mass of oil can divide into 2 drops. This is a process of individualization. But the thing is that the light process is happening on a scalar level. So it doesn't distance does not matter. We can penetrate matter without interacting. So what this created, this is my theory, is that basically the entire biology on top, in the biosphere, on top of the planet, is interconnected with the black goo of the planet in a kind of mirror function. Everything we think, everything we feel, everything that is processed within the light body of a human is sent down there, and we have a holofractal, immortal being in the center of the earth that knows everything one can know, remembers everything that ever happened. And this might be the thing that is called the Akasha Chronicle. And this is what is giving the entire biosphere instinct. And the people who interact with this entity, they say it is a motherly creature. She has all aspects of a motherly creature. I observed this many times because when you start dealing with a black goo, you need either to commit suicide or to connect with her. So we have many people who have a straight connection to this being within the planet. And it's funny how she sometimes reacts. Like when somebody has the first contact with her, completely excited, she says, "What do you want?" And then the guy says, "Oh, I wanted to see, I wanted to meet. What do you want?" And then he doesn't know what, he has no question and no target. And she says, "Sorry, I'm busy. Come back when you want, when you know what you want from me." Yeah, this is her. She's loving, but she's very straight. And
Okay, today we're just going to go over a little bit of melanin and how melanin is seen scientifically. We all know how important melanin is, because if it wasn't important, your adversary would not go through so many artificial measures to achieve what you have naturally. Ours come naturally from the Most High. He made us Black people in his image. So if we're melanated, he's melanated. And the universe is melanated. We're not only earthly beings, we are really people of the entire universe, because as you know, they find what's called dark matter in the universe. Okay, so that tells you how important melanin is. When I was growing up, I remember sitting in the doctor's office and there was an article on astronauts, and they were talking about the difference between how when they come back from space travel, how long it takes Caucasoid astronauts to bounce back when they come back to the Earth, opposed to Black people that were astronauts. It took them little to no time to bounce back. And it took their Caucasoid counterparts about triple the time for them to bounce back and get back into society after space travel. And it's because of the melanated bodies are just more in tune with not only this earth, but the entire universe. And don't you know, our melanin also protects us from getting a lot of the same birth defects that you see in the Caucasoids. It prevents us from getting a lot of the degenerated diseases that you see them getting. And also try to get out every day and let that sun just have your body to shine on. Just do it, because this is how we keep that vitamin D up in our bodies. If you can't make it out, stand in a window in your house where you can feel that sun hitting on you. That's a really important thing, that we continue to do that. Our ancestors spent a lot of time in the sun. And, you know, being that we have lived such an unnatural life in America, we have gotten away from a lot of our traditions. So if you can get out there, stand in your backyard or out front when that sun is glaring down, and just let that sun have a crack at you, because it's a good thing for us. All right, it's a very good thing. Not only does it make us stronger as a people, look at everything your adversary do. See, they can't duplicate you. And this is why they get upset, that they can't be us, because they can't duplicate the physical traits given to us by the Most High. See, they can't crack a genetic code and then become melanated people. Everything they do to duplicate us is done through artificial means. They have to run to a plastic surgeon if they want any of the physical enhancements done to their bodies. All right. Also, melanin is valuable whether we are dead or alive. Now, we already know about organ harvesting. Not only is melanin external, it's also internally on all of our organs, including our brains. And what does your adversary want? They want your melanated skin. They want your melanated organs. And they want everything on your body, because they know it's way more valuable than harvesting anything from them. Even they know where the most powerful organs are, where the most powerful skin is. Now, whenever they want melanin, they have to go again to their artificial means of putting on their, oils. They have tanning oils. They have injections and pills and stuff of that nature. And those things are only a temporary, y'all, means of achieving melanin. If you took them away from those products, they're going to go right back to their pale selves. because it's artificial. They can only achieve it artificially, and it's temporary, where ours is for a lifetime. Okay, it never goes away, and that's a beautiful thing. And I thank the Most High every day when I look in the mirror and can see my melanated skin. And you should feel that same way too. Don't ever trade up your melanated skin for skin bleaching and stripping out what the Most High has given you. They may not admit it openly, but they wish they could have your melanin. They wish they could be you without taking on all of the social negativity of being Black people. They really understand a lot about our melanin. But one thing they can't do, they can't achieve our melanin permanently. They never could master that. And that just should go to tell you how complex our melanin really is. It's not one of those simple things to duplicate. The Most High made it so complex, your enemy can't duplicate it. He can't duplicate it at all. But they still love our melanin and studied our melanin from the 1600s all the way up to today. They have never stopped studying our melanin. Not once. Ladies and gentlemen, not once. But they studied it enough to know it is the thing to have. And this is why it's being robbed from our people in death. They know.